At 11:30 p.m. local time, Polish radar operators saw something no NATO crew had ever seen before. 19 separate tracks crossing from Belarus in tight sequence. Each one was flying low, slow, and silent, hugging the tree line at under 200 meters. On the scope, they looked like mosquitoes. In reality, they were Russian-made drones headed straight into NATO airspace. Within minutes, scramble alerts ripped through eastern Poland. F-16 pilots bolted for their jets. Patriot crews slammed launch canisters into position. Somewhere near Lublin, cell phones buzzed with emergency alerts as the first sirens cut through the night. But here's the twist. These weren't just intruders, they were bait. And by firing at them, Poland would walk straight into Moscow's trap. Or so the Kremlin thought. For the next 7 hours, every radar ping, every missile launch, every intercepted drone would be cataloged, analyzed, and broadcast across NATO's integrated command. By dawn, Poland had done something no ally had ever attempted: shooting down Russian drones inside NATO territory. The problem was, instead of intimidating NATO, Moscow had just made the biggest mistake of the war. The first blips came in from Poland's eastern sector, close to Wierzyki in the Lublin region. The radar signatures were erratic, too small for manned aircraft, too slow for cruise missiles. At first, operators thought they were dealing with weather clutter. Then the tracks multiplied. 3, 6, 9. By midnight, there were 19. Orders came fast. Scramble, scramble, scramble. Within minutes, F-16C Fighting Falcons roared off the runway at Kruzinski Air Base. Their mission was to identify, shadow, and, if cleared, engage. These are Poland's frontline fighters armed with AIM-120 AMRAAMs and Sidewinders. But against low-speed drones, it's like bringing a sledgehammer to swat flies. That's why ground units were key. Patriot batteries near Lublin went into high alert. Operators adjusted their radars to low-altitude search modes, hunting for drones flying at just about 150 kilometers per hour, skimming at treetop level. The shorter-range POP-RAD systems, mounted on armored vehicles, deployed into choke points along the likely flight path. Each vehicle carries 4 heat-seeking Grom missiles, designed for exactly this type of low, slow threat. Inside Poland's Air Defense Command Center, the tension was rising. NATO's integrated radar feed showed the drones crossing deep into central Poland. This wasn't a border flirtation. This was deliberate penetration. According to Polish officials, electronic warfare units also came online, jamming the drones' GPS links. The goal: forced them to crash before they reached urban areas. At the same time, civilian authorities issued NOTAMs, temporary flight restrictions over Lublin and Rzeszów. Every operator knew the rules of engagement were tight. They had to confirm targets, avoid civilian aircraft, and track each incursion step by step. But with 19 intruders inside NATO airspace, hesitation wasn't an option. The first order to intercept was just about to be given. At 0:47 hours, the first Polish missile streaked skyward. A Patriot PAC-3 interceptor left its launcher near Lublin with a roar, locking onto a drone barely visible on radar. Seconds later, the contact vanished. The battle had begun. Over the next 6 hours, the air war played out in slow motion. One by one, the 19 intruders were hunted, tracked, and eliminated. Some went down to surface-to-air missiles, their wreckage scattering across open fields. Others simply lost contact and spiraled into the countryside as Polish jammers cut their GPS feeds. By dawn, the Ministry of Defense confirmed at least 19 drones neutralized. NATO sources put the number closer to 23. Each engagement followed strict rules. The Polish F-16s flew escort, but rarely fired. Instead, they corralled the drones, feeding precise coordinates to ground batteries. This was no dogfight. It was a chess match fought with radar, data links, and carefully rationed munitions. Witnesses near Ririki reported hearing thunderous launches followed by distant impacts. For civilians, it was chaos. Sirens, alerts, and the sounds of jets tearing overhead. For the operators in the air defense network, it was controlled execution. What made the operation unique was not the kill count, but where it happened. Every intercept took place inside NATO airspace. Article 5 wasn't invoked, this wasn't an armed attack, but the symbolism was unmistakable. Russia had crossed a line, and Poland responded with live fire. At 6:45 CEST, the last drone blip faded from radar. Operators exhaled for the first time all night. In 7 hours, Poland had done something historic. The largest defensive shootdown of hostile aircraft in NATO territory since the alliance was founded. Diplomatic pressure followed military moves. London summoned the Russian ambassador, demanding an explanation for the violation. NATO Secretary General condemned the incursion as a large-scale provocation. Even allies far from Poland, like Canada and Norway, pledged additional surveillance assets to the region. For Moscow, what may have begun as a test of NATO's seams had now triggered exactly what it feared most: tighter integration, faster deployments, and more firepower on Russia's western flank. And while diplomats exchanged sharp words, analysts began asking a different question. What exactly did the Kremlin think it was achieving by sending those drones into Poland? From Moscow's perspective, 19 drones slipping into Polish airspace might have seemed like a clever move. Cheap, expendable platforms, limited risk, maximum disruption. If one or two slipped through and rattled NATO's nerves, the Kremlin could watch the fallout at minimal cost. Some Russian outlets claimed the incursion was accidental, suggesting that the drones strayed off course while targeting Ukraine. But Polish officials dismissed that within hours. Flight paths showed deliberate penetration, straight lines, coordinated timings, and synchronized speeds. This wasn't a navigational error. It was a stress test. Analysts point to two possible goals. First, to measure NATO's reaction time. How fast could Poland scramble? How quickly could the alliance convene? Second, to create doubt among civilians. Make Eastern Poland feel just as vulnerable as Kharkiv or Odessa. But the gamble backfired. Instead of hesitation, NATO moved faster than expected. Eastern Sentry brought Allied jets within 24 hours. Article 4 consultations unified, not divided, the alliance. What Russia framed as a show of force exposed its own weakness. Drones were neutralized, signatures were captured, and the incident handed NATO more intelligence than Moscow even bargained for. The Kremlin wanted to intimidate, but instead it gave Poland the chance to demonstrate live-fire competence against a real-world threat. And worse, for Moscow, the entire alliance was now watching, learning, and adapting. Which raises a bigger question. How exactly did Poland and NATO turn a drone swarm into a teaching moment? Neutralizing 19 drones in one night wasn't luck. It was layered defense, working exactly as designed. Poland's radar network begins with long-range early warning radars, giant dishes able to spot high-altitude bombers at hundreds of kilometers. But drones are a different problem. They fly low, slow, and small, hiding in the ground clutter. To counter that, Poland relies on overlapping radars, including mobile low-altitude systems like the SOLA and NUR-22. These specialize in picking out tiny returns against forest, hills, and even city skylines. Once detected, tracking is handed off to NATO's command network. Airborne Warning and Control System aircraft, or AWACS, flying over Central Europe stitch together the picture, feeding real-time data to both Polish crews and Allied jets. That meant that every operator from a Patriot battery commander to an RAF Typhoon pilot was looking at the same common air picture. Electronic warfare added another layer. Polish and NATO jammers disrupted the drone's GPS and communication links, forcing some to crash or drift harmlessly off course. Unlike missiles, jamming costs only electricity, but it delivers priceless intel. Every disrupted signal reveals frequencies, modulation, and control protocols. And then comes the firepower. Patriots for high-value threats, pop-rad short-range launchers for drones hugging the treetops. Even F-16s using infrared sensors could visually confirm targets before ground crews pulled the trigger. Each intercepted drone wasn't just a kill, it was a live test of NATO's playbook. And results would pay off in the intelligence vault. For Poland and NATO, the wreckage scattered across fields and forests wasn't just debris, it was treasure. Every recovered drone carries clues. Circuit boards, antennas, navigation chips, even the paint on the fuselage told a story about where it was built, how it was modified, and which units launched it. Electronic signatures mattered even more. During the night, NATO sensors logged every radio frequency, every burst transmission, every control handshake between the drones and their operators. That data now feeds into threat libraries, allowing future intrusions to be identified faster and jammed more effectively. Thermal profiles were captured too. Infrared cameras on the F-16s and ground sensors recorded the unique heat signatures of engines and exhausts. Once stored, those patterns can be recognized instantly by NATO systems from the Baltic to the Black Sea. It wasn't the first time an adversary accidentally handed over valuable secrets. In the South China Sea, Chinese pilots once gave away radar frequencies while posturing against U.S. helicopters. In the Red Sea, Houthi boats exposed communication codes during failed swarm attacks. Moscow just joined the same list. The drones didn't just fail to intimidate, they strengthened the very alliance they were supposed to unsettle. By sunrise, the verdict was clear. Russia's drone incursion had backfired. What the Kremlin framed as a low-cost provocation had triggered a high-value response. Poland didn't hesitate, NATO didn't fracture. Instead, the alliance tightened its shield, hardened its defenses, and sharpened its intelligence. The big mistake wasn't the drones crossing into Poland. It was assuming that NATO wouldn't seize the opportunity to turn provocation into preparation. The Polish incident didn't happen in isolation. Over the past 2 years, NATO's eastern flank has been seeing a steady drumbeat of airspace violations and drone incursions. In 2023, fragments of Russian drones landed in Romania during strikes on Ukrainian ports. In 2024, unidentified UAVs buzzed near the Baltic, prompting emergency scrambles by German Eurofighters. Each time, Moscow denied intent, framing it as navigational drift or battlefield spillover. But the pattern is clear. Push the borders, probe the defenses, watch the reactions. The Poland swarm simply scaled that tactic up. It wasn't about hitting targets. It was about testing resolve. And the answer NATO gave was louder than any denial from Moscow. Fast coordination, united diplomacy, and visible deployments. The alliance didn't just defend Poland's skies. It signaled to every capital in Europe that the seams Russia keeps searching for are closing fast. So here's the question for you today. If you were sitting in Poland's command center that night, 19 hostile drones on the radar, what would you do? Do you fire immediately or do you hold back and risk one slipping through? Drop your thoughts in the comments because NATO commanders aren't the only ones debating that choice. And thanks for sticking with us through this breakdown of Poland's drone intercepts. If you enjoyed this analysis, please hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next one. And if you want to go a step further and support the channel directly, join the fleet. You'll get loyalty badges, priority responses, and you'll be helping us bring more true maritime and military stories to the surface. Just click join on our channel page and get on board. Because one thing's for sure, this won't be the last time NATO skies light up with incoming threats. And when they do, we'll be right there breaking it down for you. See you next time. And remember, never underestimate the mosquito on your radar.